Welcome to Wine Soundtrack International. Listen to the passion with which producers narrate their winery and their world. In 30 answers, discover their stories, personalities, and passions.
Hello, friends and listeners of Wine Soundtrack Canada. I am Christine Campbell, and today I am in Duncan, British Columbia, sitting with none other than Bailey Williamson. Welcome, Bailey. And Bailey, you are the winemaker from Blue Grouse Estate Winery. Welcome. We are so excited to have you today. Can you tell me a little bit about Blue Grouse Estate Winery?
Well, thanks very much for having me, Christine. First of all, Blue Grouse was one of the early pioneers of growing grapes on Vancouver Island. The original plantings were done as a test site to test the viability of grapes in the region. And so we had sort of two rows of everything. That group that did that sort of went sideways, and the vineyard was in a bit disrepair when the next person bought it, who was Hans Kiltz, Dr. Hans Kiltz. And he took his doctoring German eye and pulled out what wasn't working and replanted with what was working and what he knew. And so we ended up with things like Müller-Thurgau, Ortega, Bacchus, Segribe, stuff that would work in this region because it's a little cooler climate and doesn't have quite the long growing season. Dr. Hans Kiltz sold it to the current owner, the Brunner family, in 2012, and we embarked, that's when I joined, and we embarked on a rather ambitious expansion project that is still ongoing.
Well, I love that. I love the backstory there. You mentioned that we are on Vancouver Island, but where specifically are we in Vancouver Island? What is the growing region here on Vancouver Island where Blue Grouse is located?
We are in the Cowichan Valley. Cowichan is a First Nations term for the warm land. It is on the rain shadow side of the range of mountains that go down the center of the island. So it's probably got the warmest, driest, well, no, not driest, that'd be a lie. We're still in the rainforest, but it's got the warmest mean average temperature of anywhere in Canada.
So it's maritime and a bit Mediterranean?
Correct.
Woohoo! Look at me knowing some wine knowledge there. How many acres do the Brunners currently have? I know there was a recent acquisition. Yes,
there was. We have the winery property is 65 acres in total. We have 35 of it dedicated to grapes, a couple of houses, and then a 10-acre riparian area that we have left natural for the flora and fauna. And then we just purchased another 42-ish acres just down the road, which will get planted out in the next few years. So we will hopefully be somewhere around 70 acres under vine when all is said and done.
Okay, so that's going to increase the cases you produce a year from what you currently have now is what number?
We're at about 6,000 cases, and once everything is planting and producing, we will be somewhere around 12,000 cases.
Perfect. Well, I can't wait for the growth. I know that's a lot of work for you. What type of wines are Blue Grouse Estate Winery known for, and what do people come here looking for?
The original vineyard and the original plantings of the Segribe and Ortega and Müller-Thurgau, we're transitioning away from them. Climate change is upon us, as I think everybody has experienced in some fashion or another. We have seen an increase in the growing degree days over the last 15 years that is perceptible, and so we're planting more Pinot Noir, Pinot Gris, and we're putting in some of the early Chardonnay plantings that we're really hopeful that it comes around on Vancouver Island, and there's nothing to say that it shouldn't, but still a bit unknown at this point. So I think that would be it. So it's the Pinot families and sparkling, which is a natural extension of the cool climate here.
Well, I love all of the things you just talked about, sparkling for sure. What would you say, Bailey, are your markets? Are the people buying Blue Grouse Estate Winery people that are local? Are they international? Are they provincial? What would you say your top markets are?
Our top market currently is local, Vancouver Island. We sell almost all of our product here on Vancouver Island, a lot of it directly from the winery. We have a wine club that is well patronized. We have a beautiful site, so we have a lot of people that just love coming here and spending an afternoon, and they are, probably our best customers by far.
And probably becoming a part of the Blue Grouse family in a way.
Well, everybody that shows up usually becomes somehow part of the family.
I feel like I'm a part of the family.
You are, Christine.
Okay, so we've done some nice market research questions. Now we're going to flip over to you specifically. And I would like to ask what your first memory relevant to wine is or was in your life. Can you recall?
It started young. I was given watered down wine when we lived in Rome when I was like 5 years old. And the one thing that I do remember is in the place that we lived in Rome, there was one of these glass decanters in the shape of a bunch of grapes, and it had one of those spigots on the bottom where you push your glass into it and it opens up. I sat and played with that. I only filled it with water, but I loved that thing. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And then, I remember my dad making wine in the basement with a few friends, and that always seemed a bit crazy, and the smell of it I still remember in my grandfather's house. There was always a couple of dummy johns there with airlocks on them, and it's a particular smell. And so food and wine have always been part of my life.
Well, no wonder you became a winemaker, and a brilliant one at that. So going from memories to wine and your first, what would you say is the first or most memorable wine you have ever enjoyed? And if you can recall that wine, what was the occasion?
Oh, geez.
You can take a moment.
Oh, good, because nothing's jumping to mind particularly. I mean, there wasn't one seminal moment, I don't think. The years that I worked as a chef, I was always surrounded by wine and was able to taste a lot of different stuff and, learn about the regions, the grapes, and all that stuff. I think for me, one of them was Chateau Moussard. I have a poli-sci degree, so, world politics has always been interesting, and it just blew me away that in one of the most fought over bits of land in the world, in the Bekaa Valley, they're growing grapes and making amazing wine. So, I just for the sheer tenacity of growing grapes in a war zone, I think you got to get points for that. So that was one. When I first tasted, real Chablis was an amazing moment, and real high quality grower champagne made a very big impression on me. I tell everybody I wish I had more lifetimes, because it is such a process that you only get one chance a year to make wine, and it's a bit as much as I like it, it's certainly not like being a chef where every night you get another chance to do it. You got to grow the grapes again all year and then make wine in the fall. So
yeah.
it's
Well, Chablis, sparkling grower, champagne. Yes, yes. Check, check. Chateau Moussard. I like it. Traveling the world, as you said, you spent some of your childhood in Italy. Traveling the world abroad, which would you say, now this might be a tricky one, is the best foreign wine you've ever enjoyed? The best foreign wine, where would you kind of land? What country? And if you want to also answer, what would be the worst? But you don't have to answer that question if you don't want to.
The best, I mean, I feel like I'm always traveling the world whenever I'm drinking international wine. And I think that's what's exciting about that, is that you can be in your home and have a wine from somewhere else in the world, and it almost transports you there.
100%.
I don't know. It's so exciting to try new things. I'm always interested in what other people are doing from different regions. So I don't know if I would have a favorite or anything, but I love Riesling.
Who doesn't? Who doesn't, really? I think that's a totally fair answer to that question. Here's another interesting one. Amongst all populations in the world, what nation do you think drinks the best in terms of quality of wine?
Oh, geez. I mean, what nation would drink the best quality of wine? I don't know. I think everybody's got, in old world anyhow, old European and stuff, everybody makes their own daily drink, right? And that's what everybody gets together and does, and that's what's sitting on the table on Wednesday night and stuff. So, I think there's a range, and then when people have an occasion, they're bringing out something else. So I don't know if there's anyone that's solely drinking the top flight stuff every day.
And quality is so subjective, right? Like, this table wine is going to be brilliant for our Wednesday night meal, and that's my favorite because I'm with my family.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay. Which of the wines from your personal cellar are currently giving you the most satisfaction right now as you're opening them?
I am really enjoying the Terra Vista wines. We're part of the wine club, and they do some interesting stuff with Albarino and Verdeo and a few grapes that are not common in British Columbia, but they've pushed that envelope a bit. The original owners, Bob and Sanka Tennant, friends of mine, and they're fantastic, and they sold just a couple of years ago to another fellow who I did my first harvest with, and then he came back into the industry after going and doing something in the .com world, and now he's the proprietor there, and I'm just so happy for them as a whole group, and I'm loving the wines.
And Terra Vista is located on the Naramata Bench in the Okanagan Valley of British Columbia?
Correct.
I'm a fan of their wines, too. We have good taste, Bailey. Speaking of good taste, do you believe in the perfect wine variety? Is there a perfect variety of grape that is amazing all the time for wine? Or do you believe in that, or do you not believe in it? It's an open interpretation question.
I think it all depends on what you're doing and what you're eating and who you're sharing it with. It could be anything. You could have a 100-point wine and be sharing it with a bunch of really dull, boring people, and the whole experience is probably only rating a 50%, but you could have a terrible, box wine or whatever and be sharing it with, your best friends in the world in an amazing place, and the wine's only 50%, but the experience is 100.
Exactly. Well, I am a big Chardonnay person, so that would have been my answer. Is there a grape variety that is your favorite variety?
No.
Short and sweet. I like it. I like it a lot. Okay.
It's like asking me which of my kids I like better. It depends on the day.
Absolutely. Well, Chardonnay is just my perfect child, I guess, because I always choose her. So in your opinion, what is your opinion of wine critics and wine scores? Honest answer.
Subjective. I think there's a place for the wine pundits. I don't know if their importance is overstated because wine is so subjective that the individual should not feel. The average consumer individual should not feel pressured to buy something because it is said to be the best by the pundits, because they may not like it. It may not be their thing. I think what I want to see is people explore wine for what it is. It's another beverage, and there's enough styles and types out there for everyone to find what they like.
I love that answer. Okay, styles of wine. You just led me right into the next amazing question. As a consumer, so you as the consumer, do you prefer white wine, red wine, or rosé wine?
I am a seasonal drinker. I drink more red in the winter. I drink more white in the summer. I drink rosé all year long. And beer is my favorite beverage after work.
Love it. Still or sparkling wine?
Oh, I like them both. I can't,
Can't decide, just like your kids. I get it. Regarding sparkling, champagne or something else?
Champagne for sure. I was at a grower's tasting, and we tasted a bunch of small production champagnes. It was outstanding, and the breadth of style and what they were doing really was impressive and interesting, and it's why I like method traditional champagne and sparkling wine so much, is that the opportunities to influence the flavor profile are immense, from the very beginning of developing the cuvée to the tirage element and how long you leave it contacting with the lees, and then what you do after disgorging and how you dosage it. There's just so many opportunities to influence the flavor profile, using aged wine as a portion of your cuvée. I just think there are not enough lifetimes for me to do this the way that I would love to experiment and do it in my mind.
Love that answer. So if you're anything like me, and you might have enjoyed that one extra glass of wine from time to time, what is your best cure for a hangover?
Another drink.
Woohoo! I knew I liked you.
Yeah. Well, maybe a Caesar or a mimosa, something like that. Bailey's in your coffee.
Hair of the dog, right?
Yeah.
What does a non-drinker lose out by not tasting your wine specifically?
What was it? It's the old Frank Sinatra piece about, for those guys that don't drink, when you wake up in the morning, that's the best you're going to feel all day.
Oh my God, this is fantastic. Okay, here comes the space alien question. Are you ready?
Oh no.
Space aliens land on your property. Which of the wines from your cellar do you give them to taste?
The cleaning product. I don't know. The sparkling. Yeah.
Sparkling Paula?
Yes, absolutely.
And why would you choose that?
it might be interesting to see what happens when the carbon dioxide goes into them.
Why not? They're aliens, right? Each vintage tells a different story, or not. Are there more things that repeat themselves year to year, or do you feel like it's the opposite?
I definitely see some consistency in certain aspects of the flavor profiles. We're a cool climate region, and so we always have naturally high acidity. So that is one of those things that I think is a defining feature for our region, is that bright acidity that is naturally there. So there's things like that. There's a few other things that I just see, in my tastings, not just our wines here at Blue Grouse, but some of the other producers around. I do see some similarities. So it's but then there's the vintage variation can be huge. So but there's often a thread through them that sort of says Cowichan Valley.
I like that continuity. Do you personally have any good luck rituals for when harvest is about to start?
I don't. I'm not particularly superstitious that way. That's an incredibly crazy time of year. School goes back in, all the extracurricular activities are going on, harvest is about to get going. There's just so much going on in my home life and work life that it's just tough to keep it all going. And so I think the only sort of ritual is that the Segribe on the property is always early and first to come in, and it gives me a chance to get my game face on, and then there's about 2 week lag period before the rest of the grapes start coming in. So it's the test run before.
Well, it sounds like an excellent way to start, and why not with Segribe? Because that's one of the most hard to pronounce wine terms out there, right?
Yeah, no question.
I've learned that some producers walk into their cellars and speak to the wine in the barrels. Do you do that? And if so, what do you say? And or do you speak to the vines in the vineyards?
I probably do subconsciously. In the barrel cellar, there's days when I go in there, especially when the wines are really young, and I'll taste them. I'll taste them one day, and I'll think that I'm the second coming because they are amazing, and then 2 days later I'll go in there and taste them, and I'll be like, what the hell happened here? Because in their youth they just change so often. And so if I'm talking to them, it's usually in that context, like, oh, you are beautiful, and then today you are awful. And so it's probably more an inner dialogue than anything.
Well, inner dialogue is dialogue nonetheless, right? When you were little, when you were a little Bailey, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh my. I had no idea. I didn't have a clear vision. I think in the last few years I put together a little statement that I think encompasses my own personal raison d'etre. Mm-hmm. And that is I want to be involved in the production of high quality comestibles in an artisan fashion. And whether that's making salami or cheese or wine or beer, for me it's making something like that I can share with people, and it is that breaking bread around a table with friends that brings me joy and wholeness.
Did you feel that when you were a child as well?
We always ate dinner together. It was not one of those things, every night we all sat down. That's where the difficult conversations happen. That's where, I get called out, and that's where, that kind of stuff. So for me, it was always like that. My dad was very keen on food and wine and culture from that perspective. When we lived in Rome, he embraced it wholly. And when we came back to Canada, that's when, him and some of his friends got together and made some bad wine in the basement and, stuff like that. I remember he got some pig haunches and made prosciutto one time in the basement. One of them worked out, the other one didn't. But, seeing that kind of thing just really informed me. And so, after high school, I went to culinary school and followed that path for about 25 years, and really enjoyed it. And then it just it seemed to be a natural extension to move into making wine. I liked the whole concepts of it and, creating something again. And so it all fit in naturally. I have no idea how I arrived here. I just did.
Well, I'm glad you did, because you're fantastic. When you're not working, and you are a very hard worker, we've talked about that, how do you spend your free time?
I'm usually doing something with the family or something like that. I love to be outside hiking around in nature. That's always just so calming and centering. I'm always I'm looking for interesting foods and seeing what people are making, what other sort of craftsmen are making for food and stuff like that. It's life's a big adventure, trying to, hunting and gathering, let's say.
Well, it might not be, hunting and gathering might not be a sport, but is there any sport that you are drawn to more than anything else, either doing, participating, or watching?
I like watching hockey. My son is playing hockey and he is really enjoying it, and I love watching him. It's I don't get hurt, and so it's easier to watch. But any sport well done is a joy to watch, I think.
I like that. Okay, switching over to music. Who is your favorite singer or group?
Tom Waits.
Tom Waits. Tell me about Tom Waits.
An incredible balladeer with, sort of a mashup of Dylan and Frank Zappa or something, experimental with sound, but also an incredible lyricist. I got to see him at the Commodore a number of years ago. It was outrageous, just a bit on the edge, and I like it on the edge there.
I'm finding so much about you. This is fantastic. Do you have a favorite film dedicated to wine?
Oh. No, it wouldn't be just wine. It'd be food in general. The Cook, the Thief, His Wife, and Her Lover. I don't know if anybody's seen that, but I just love that. And the fork piece was awesome.
Clearly something I'm going to have to look up and find. Is it Netflix or?
Oh, I don't even know if they have it. It's old art house stuff. I can't even remember the director. I think I saw it at the Toronto Film Festival like years and years ago. The Cook, the Thief, His Wife, and Her Lover.
I just want to see it because of the title. That's amazing. So for a very lovely romantic evening with your wife, which wine would you order?
I guess it'd depend where we were and what we were eating. But she likes bubbly, like champagne, maybe something like that, or Riesling. Probably something along those lines. That's her thing.
I like that you're thinking about her and what she likes. That's bonus points to you, Bailey. What is the best piece of advice you have ever received?
The best piece of advice I've ever received. Wait 24 hours before reacting. Don't hit send right away.
Breathe through it for a bit. I think that's excellent. Okay, so that was the best piece of advice you've ever received. What would you consider some advice from you that you could give the listeners?
One of the things that I've talked to a few people about in winemaking specifically is have the courage of your convictions when you're making wine, because as I said earlier in my, do I talk to the barrels, and one moment you look at and taste the barrel and it's great, and then the next moment you look at it and taste it and it's terrible. Have the courage of your convictions to know that what you've done is correct and the wine is evolving, and don't intervene prematurely. Have the courage to just sit back and let it do its thing. You can always intervene, but you can't take it back. You can't go, there's no backward step on that once you get involved. So, it's having that courage to say, I believe in what I just did and how the wine will evolve and where it will end up.
I like that. I think that's excellent advice. Please complete the following sentence. A table without wine is like ...
Like a table without people.
Fantastic. That is a great answer. What type of wines do you think people will still be enjoying in 2300?
2,300 well-made wines. I don't know. There's been a lot of talk about different grape varieties as we have seen certain regions of the world become less and less hospitable to the cultivation of grapes. I think it will be interesting in the long term to see how the industry writ large adapts to climate change and where and what grapes they're growing. What was that, 2,300? I mean, that's a long way away. I mean, there's a lot of runway for things to change. Who knows? Will we be here? I mean, I won't, but
Well, that's the question, isn't it? Okay, so let's head down a different path. Name 3 wines that you would like to take with you to a deserted island or out into outer space. However you want to go with this. Deserted island and tropical, or out of space and with the constellations.
I'd like to take that bottle that never empties. The magically refilling one?
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever it is, I don't care.
Some more, please.
Absolutely. I don't know. I mean, I think there's something great about being in outer space and drinking champagne. I mean, the stars are there. I mean, the metaphors are fast on that.
Fantastic. Champagne's really much always the answer, isn't it? What is the winemaking area of the world that you would like to do some exploration of?
Ooh, that's interesting. Well, I think southern New Zealand, the Otago region, would be interesting, partially because it's climatically very similar to us here. I would love to see how they approach different grape varieties and techniques. I would also love to go to South Africa. I think that would be very interesting, partially because I do like Chenin Blanc, and I think that it is, I wouldn't say underrated or anything, but it's an interesting grape, and I think there's a lot that it can do. And South Africa has some very old plantings, which for a while there they were pulling out, and then I think there was a real movement to preserve some of the old plantings, which I think is admirable from an industry perspective. But and that's one of the places I first got into sparkling wine was at Road 13 in the Okanagan. The sparkling Chenin Blanc was my project, and I was able to realize some greatness through that, which was fun, and I still love that. So I don't know, I guess that's my answer.
Well, it's delicious. I've had some. I enjoy it a lot. Okay, we're not finished yet, Bailey. It is now time for a little game we like to play. I know, so much fun. I am going to pick some different wine varieties, and I would like you to tell me what song you would pair with that. This is the wine soundtrack, so we want to have some music in here. So I'm going to start with Pinot Noir. It could be a genre, or it could be a song, or it could be a style of music.
Jazz.
How did I know you were going to say that?
Maybe Miles Davis.
Ooh, very cool. Riesling.
Opera. Wagner. The Ring Cycle.
Yes, all good. Okay, last one. I'm going to say sparkling wine.
Flappers in the Roaring 20s. I don't know, whatever, some of those songs in there.
Like Charleston type music?
Yeah, fun and peppy.
Fun and peppy. Well, that's it. There you go. From Bailey Williamson. That's how we're ending. Thank you so much for joining us today. We would love to ask if you can remind people where we can find your wines, Bailey.
Blue Grouse wines and the Quill series are available on Vancouver Island and in Victoria and in Vancouver through your preferred private retailer. If they don't have it, ask for it when you go in and they can get it. Or you can go onto our website, bluegrouse.ca, and order it straight through there, or become a club member and have us ship it to you.
And people are visiting your tasting room, is that correct? We can come on in and book a reservation?
Absolutely. It's by reservation only. We don't have a whole lot of walk-in space, but we are more than happy to take people. The summer's a little easier because there's a little more outdoor space to accommodate guests, but we will be closed after Christmas, or just before Christmas, for about a month until the new year. Everybody gets a little vacay, and then we're open after that.
Well, it has been an absolute pleasure speaking with you today, Bailey. Again, this is Christine Campbell with the Wine Soundtrack Canada podcast. We certainly hope that you enjoy the rest of your day and enjoyed listening to this really fun interview with Bailey Williamson of Blue Grouse Estate Winery. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to a new episode of Wine Soundtrack International. For details and updates, visit our website, winesoundtrack.com.